Absolute Martian Manhunter number 3 came out this past week, and even at this early juncture, I'm reasonably sure that this story is going to go on to become like the definitive Martian Manhunter story, which is interesting and kind of weird too. Martian Manhunter's been around for decades, but he really doesn't have like a go-to story, like a definitive Martian Manhunter story. Like, for instance, what's the Martian Manhunter equivalent to, say, All-Star Superman? He really doesn't have one. The interesting kind of juxtaposition there is that I feel like Absolute Martian Manhunter is going to be that for him, but this is not the canonical Martian Manhunter, like the classic version of Martian Manhunter. This is something very different. It kind of makes me wonder what the ripple effect will be as far as this story and the canonical Martian Manhunter in the next couple of decades. In this third issue, John Jones and his Martian passenger are confronted by a series of random people randomly setting random homeless people on fire. Ugh. Couple that with the Martian in John's head continuously warning him of an oncoming threat, and John's got a lot of unpacking to do, so to speak. Issue 1 of this story had a really good, impactful opening page, a similarly impactful opening page in this issue as well. It kind of tugs at your heartstrings. More trippy color stuff in this issue. John at one point takes a walk, I think from his car into his house, that's really a visual spectacle, let's say that. I really like the visual of this strange Martian creature that of course is just in John Jones's head, kind of accompanying him through his day-to-day life. It's a fun visual. And I read somewhere that our artist here, Javier Rodriguez, actually has a clay sculpture of this Martian thing in his home that I'm guessing he uses for reference. That's gotta be an interesting conversation starter. It's probably not a good idea to try and blackmail a serial killer. Specifically one who's like twice your size, wears a scary mask, and has a big knife in his hand. But lo and behold, that's exactly what our main character does in The Slasher's Apprentice, number 2. So in this issue, Riley, who is like a super tech-savvy young woman, blackmails the notorious Hopton Valley killer into taking her on as his apprentice using her tech-savvy skills. It's amazing. These kinds of people are so smart with technology, and yet not smart enough to see that this isn't gonna end well. What's kind of interesting from a dynamic standpoint between Riley and the killer is that the killer doesn't talk. He or she is very much like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers in that sense. So a lot of the big areas for communication in terms of not only speech but facial language are blocked off. It adds a certain element of mystique, I guess, to that character, in addition to him being scary, and there's an uncertainty there. I'm not usually a slasher movie person, so I don't really geek out when movie slashers find creative ways to kill people. It's not really my thing. But even I was amused by what the Hopton Valley killer does in this issue with a lava lamp. I think my only complaint with this book is that the Hopton Valley killer needs a better name. Like, the Hopton Valley killer doesn't have any snap, doesn't have any zing to it. On the subject of names, Riley is also the name of the girl from Inside Out, the girl in whose head all the colorful characters are in. I'm just putting this out there. I think Riley should become a serial killer in Inside Out 3. Mostly because I want to hear what Lewis Black is like as a serial killer. A baby gets dropped off a balcony. For reals. In Absolute Superman number 8. So the opening scene of this issue culminates with Ra's al Ghul, the big bad guy here, dropping a baby off the balcony of a skyscraper. And you know what's kind of interesting about that is that the preview pages that DC put out for this issue cover that scene. So, I mean, it's not like they're hiding from it or saving it as a surprise or anything. Too far? I don't know. I mean, you can make that argument, but on the other hand, it does firmly establish that this character is a bad guy who does bad things, so I guess the scene does its job. You know, between what we get from Ra's al Ghul in this issue and what we got from Brainiac last issue, the villains in this Absolute Superman book are increasingly dark, like much darker than we're used to seeing Superman villains. I'm not saying that's good or bad, it's just a difference at this point. You can justify it, I guess, by saying, well, Superman is the ultimate person of virtue, and on the other end of the spectrum, you've got these horrible, awful, awful people. There's a fight in Smallville in this issue, during which Superman gets armored up, like his costume becomes sort of a makeshift suit of armor, complete with a helmet. I don't like that. I think putting Superman in armor is lame. That's one of the reasons why I really didn't like the new 52 Superman costume. I mean, bullets bounce off Superman's chest. Well, what does he need armor for? You know, curiously, DC right now is doing their big Summer of Superman campaign, pretty much to tie into the Superman movie that's coming out in July. And as you can see here, all of the Superman books this month have like a red banner on top that, you know, indicates it's the Summer of Superman. All the Superman books except Absolute Superman. I understand that obviously this isn't the canonical Superman that's represented in that movie, but still it's just curious that they wouldn't do that to me. I mean, Superman is in the title of the book. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise, though. I mean, remember, this issue does have a plummeting baby in it. COVID-19 isn't the only thing running rampant on the streets of New York City in March of 2020 in Dark Honor #1. It's so weird having, like, COVID-era fiction out there. Because COVID wasn't that long ago. I mean, I had kids during COVID, you know, and COVID is still going on, depending on who you ask. So in this story, the New York underworld has been controlled by a group called the 100 for a long, long time, like decades. But when a rogue element comes in and tries to commit a hostile takeover, the rogue recruits a woman named Rain to take the hostile group down. Rain is like a badass martial arts action hero type woman. When I look at her, I kind of think prime UFC era Ronda Rousey. So apparently Dark Honor was originally conceived of as a screenplay that in the end was thought to be too raw. By too raw, I assume what they mean is too recent. You know, the story takes place in March of 2020 and it's just now June of 2025. The COVID elements aren't super present in this book, at least not yet. Outside of the streets being empty and like some references to masks and stuff like that. Hopefully the differences between COVID-era New York and regular New York become more apparent as Dark Honor proceeds. It's going to be 5 issues as I understand it. But, you know, no major complaints about this so far. You know, I'm hopeful that Dark Honor will give me the fight, like the raw, bloody fight that I've been looking for all year. My hopes are high for that, not necessarily because of all the gun violence you see in this issue, but there's a page where Rain hits somebody with a spin kick right in the face. That's really cool, and I hope we see more of that in future issues. Batman is in way over his head. Not as a superhero, but as a single parent. In Robin and Batman, Jason Todd #1. So this is a sequel to Robin and Batman, the limited series that this same creative team did in 2021 that focused on Dick Grayson's early career as Robin. This story, meanwhile, is going to focus on Jason Todd, the second Robin, who was more like rebellious and violent than Dick Grayson ever was, and he was famously killed off by the Joker in the Death in the Family storyline. I was excited to see our author Jeff Lemire and our artist Dustin Nguyen come back to the Batman universe. Robin and Batman, the original, came out at the tail end of that heavy COVID era, so I feel like it might have slipped under the radar for a lot of people. Nguyen, of course, is one of the great modern Batman artists. The look he gives us for this story with the washed out colors is very distinct, of course. Nguyen and Lemire create a villain called the Cuckoo, who seems like somebody who would be a henchman on like the 1960s Batman show. The way that Jason Todd was written in the 80s, like post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, was as a good kid who did bad things sometimes. Like a good kid with a temper problem that he was trying to overcome. Kind of an Anakin Skywalker type character. In contrast, in this story, Jeff Lemire writes Jason Todd maybe not as a bad kid, but as a really traumatized kid who's trying to hurt people the same way that he was hurt. And if good things happen as a byproduct of that, great. That's definitely a tweaked kind of approach, but it's interesting, so I'm curious to see what's coming. One thing that is consistent, though, is that Batman's judgment is clearly clouded. Even though he's trying to help this misguided kid, what worked for Dick Grayson isn't going to work for Jason Todd. You know, that's obvious to the reader up front, not so much to Batman as he's in the situation. But yeah, I was pleased with this. I'll be back for more. You know, because Dick Grayson got the Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen treatment, and now Jason Todd is getting it, what I hope as much as anything is that Tim Drake, the third Robin, gets his own Robin and Batman story down the line. I think his story would be really interesting with a fresh set of eyes on it. Does the 24-hour news cycle just make everything worse? I'm actually not talking about current events. I'm talking about One World Under Doom number 5. So in this issue, the heroes of the Marvel Universe team up with Dr. Doom to fight against Dormammu. And naturally, this creates a situation where much of the world is praising Dr. Doom, who, remember, in this story has set himself up as the supreme leader of the world. And not only are a lot of media talking heads heaping praise upon Dr. Doom, but the heroes of the Marvel Universe have to ask themselves uncomfortable questions as far as, is Dr. Doom right? There have been a decent number of scenes in this book so far, kind of like Frank Miller / Dark Knight Returns kind of scenes, where media talking heads debate what's going on in the story, and naturally some of them offer very heavy praise to Dr. Doom because this is meant to parallel, I guess, the Fox News organizations of the world heaping praise on Trump. And I don't know, even as a former journalist, it kind of makes me wonder about how good it is that we have a 24-hour news cycle in the 21st century, and, you know, whether we're kind of in the mess we are now because we've overanalyzed and overbroadcast so many different things. Can't we all just take some time to watch some damn cartoons? But yeah, there's also a great bit of dialogue in here where the Marvel heroes, talk about how Dr. Doom has done more for the world, apparently, in a really short time than they've done in their entire careers, and, is giving Doom all this power the right thing? It's kind of funny that I've called One World Under Doom the best Marvel event comic since Civil War, because if Civil War hadn't already happened, this could be a spark for a story like Civil War, where you have Doom supporters against, people who want to be independent of him, and that kind of thing. It would very much be an art imitates life situation, which sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes is what these stories are designed to be. Apparently, One World Under Doom is going to take a break next month and then come back the following month. Not sure why. I mean, for me, this story has all the momentum in the world, and I'm really, really curious to see what the finish is. Like, what's the ending here gonna be? Hey, what do you know? I made it to the 5th and final issue of Marvel's comic book adaptation of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. This issue basically adapts the climax of the movie. Rey and Ben Solo confront Palpatine on Exegol, and then the Resistance fleet faces off against the gigantic Final Order fleet. In this issue, as well as the last one, you can really feel the pace speeding up, and the way that manifests in this issue is that certain things don't have the punch and the impact that they should. For instance, what happens to Palpatine at the end. Naturally, in this issue, we get the big moment where Rey stands up and rises up against Palpatine with the spirits of all the lost and deceased Jedi behind her. This is kind of a big nitpick, but, you know, I would have put some Jedi in that shot beyond just the ones from the Skywalker saga that we know. Like, for instance, some Jedi from the High Republic era that, you know, Marvel and Lucas Books have done a lot with. But again, I know that's a big nitpick, and this moment is supposed to be about, like, these previous 9 movies all building up to this, so don't come after me. As per usual, Phil Noto is our cover artist, and he draws a mean zombie Palpatine. I love it. You know, I've slung a decent amount of mud at The Rise of Skywalker over the years, but there's one moment in the movie that I've never complained about and never will complain about because I really like it, and it's depicted in this issue. It's the big moment where Lando comes back with all the, like, civilians from around the galaxy, and they all have their various ships, and they create this mega fleet of, like, civilian ships to take down the oppressive First Order. For all the things about the movie that did suck, that was a really great Star Wars moment. There are no kings in a galaxy far, far away. Is it fashionable to wear Chuck Taylors with your supersuit? You know, in Superboy's case, as long as they're red, I think you're pretty good. This is Action Comics number 1087. So in this issue, we flash back to the canonical debut of Superboy, Clark Kent as a teenage superhero, as he and the Kents visit Metropolis to go to, like, a World's Fair type event. And I mean, they're not emphasized, but as you can see in panels like this one, he's wearing Chuck Taylors, except they're not Chuck Taylors for legal reasons. I've got a collection of Chuck Taylors, so I can appreciate that. That's quirky and cool. And also there's some nice symmetry there, because if you'll recall, when they were doing the John Kent character as Superboy, you know, Clark Kent's son, he wore Chuck Taylors, so it's like a like father, like son situation. Mark Waid is the new author for Action Comics. Mark Waid has a great voice for Superman and his cast of characters, as is evident by the various all-time great Superman stories he's written. So I'm very curious to see what he'll bring to the table here. The art here by Skylar Patridge is nice and clean. It's got a great excitement to it, so the creative pairing here works really well. There's a moment in this issue where Clark Kent kind of acts like a bratty teenager, which I appreciated. You know what? Even Superman was a bratty kid once. Mark Waid is also the author of a limited series that begins later this month about the new canonical history of the DC Universe, and we get some of that information in this issue as we talk about the Justice Society of America. So it's nice to get some of that magic mixed in here. With the new James Gunn Superman movie coming out next month, the impetus is naturally on DC to make Superman comics as good as they can be right now, in the hopes that, you know, interested eyes will go from the movie to the comic books. After reading this issue, I'm pretty confident that Action Comics is in good hands for the foreseeable future. I tend to kind of phase in and out of Action Comics. I'm definitely in starting now. I don't really like to cuss when I do these things. It's just, I don't know, it's not my style. But there's a short story in Hello Darkness number 11 that's called Shit Can. So for one time only, I'm just going to assume I have all rights and privileges to use the word shit can as often as is necessary. If you don't see this because of whatever algorithm you're using, you know why. Shit can, shit can, shit can. So I kind of fell out of Hello Darkness, Boom Studios' horror anthology book, at the start of this year, despite Hello Darkness having been one of my favorite comics of 2024. Don't ask me how, it just happened. So with this issue, I kind of peeked my head back in, and I was really interested to see this shit can story because it was produced in a really interesting way. Basically, the artist, as I understand it, used graffiti on the walls of tunnels underneath the city of Los Angeles. So, like, if you go to these various places, the art for this story is there for at least the foreseeable future. That's a really cool and interesting way to do a comic book story. And it's a good story in and of itself. It's about, like, critters, raccoons underneath the city. There's also another story in here, Gas Station Snacks, which is about aliens conquering Earth, basically. And it gets into the why of, them conquering Earth, what they're doing it for, what the purposes are. Not a motive you see very often in alien stories, if ever, really. Don't sleep on the pinup pages in these issues either. They continue to be really, really interesting and cool. So yeah, I don't know why I fell out of Hello Darkness, but consider me back in. And you know what? None of these stories are like continuous, so you can pick up any issue at any time. And now is as good a time as any. They Choose Violence number 1 starts a story that directly confronts issues of racism in the American criminal and legal systems. And I am here for it. So this issue kicks off what's going to be a 5-issue limited series about 3 black women who, in essence, get fed up with the American legal system failing African Americans who, in many cases, have been unjustly persecuted, targeted, and murdered by police officers. So they essentially form like a vigilante triad that hunts down and kills these corrupt and unjust lawmakers and law enforcement officers who, in a lot of cases, are flat-out white supremacists. It's the kind of story that, tragically, is very much based in reality. I mean, I think we've long since passed the point where people can deny that and say, oh, that doesn't happen, they're just making that up. This is the kind of story that's designed to make people uncomfortable and really challenge people's built-in perspectives on things. And I like that, personally. I mean, I like when art and artists stand up and ask questions and challenge the status quo. I mean, that's one of the reasons art exists. And it doesn't have to be a race thing. Like, that's one of the main reasons I like One World Under Doom so much. That's Marvel's current big event comic. You might not like some of the things that you're seeing or hearing in a story like this, but, that's part of the job of art and literature, to bring you things that you need to hear, to expand your mind. And yes, I can see the validity of this point of view and these actions from these made-up characters in this made-up story. Even as a white dude. A very white dude. Plus, at the end of this issue, they loop in a real-world event that kind of made my stomach drop when I saw it. In an afterword in this issue, our author Sheldon Allen insists that this story is not going to end the way we think it is. Which is interesting because I'm not really sure what to expect going forward. And you know what? For my purposes, that's a good thing.